How's it going, everyone? I am Count Jinsula, and welcome to another Pokemon GO video. Today we are going to talk about the Steel-type legendary Pokemon Registeel. It is currently slated to return to Pokemon GO in raids, and that means you have another opportunity to pick yourself up a shiny of this Pokemon. I'm going to be talking about how you can pick it up in this video, so let's roll the intro and get right into it. Okay, let's talk about Registeel. So, this is an interesting case of a Pokemon because it is not considered a top tier raid attacker. Yet, a lot of players will actually ask for this Pokemon in trades. The reason for this is because Registeel is a top Pokemon in the Great League and Ultra League. However, in order for it to have viable IVs, you will need to trade for it. The ultimate flex would be a shiny Registeel with PvP IVs. You would be able to get this by trading for it with a regular trade, but of course, expect your friends to ask for one in return. By my experiences, shiny Registeel always gets requested for lucky trades and regular trades. Thus, if you're missing some legendary Pokemon, you could probably trade for them by stocking up on Registeel. Now, since this boss is returning to raid battles, let's talk about how you can beat it. Registeel is a pure Steel-type legendary Pokemon. That means it is going to have a weakness to fire, fighting, and ground-type attacks. It also has a double resistance to poison, and a regular resistance to bug, dragon, fairy, flying, grass, ice, normal, psychic, rock, and steel-type attacks. Therefore, avoid bringing any Pokemon with these kinds of attacks. The perfect IVs for Registeel from raids is going to be 1398, and if it is weather boosted, it will be 1748. Registeel is only boosted by snowy weather, which, fortunately for some, will be the common weather boost considering it is winter for much of the world. However, getting a perfect IV is not going to be a high priority. The only place this Pokemon is viable is within the Go Battle League, and the ideal IVs are nowhere near the perfect IV values. You won't ever use Registeel in raid battles, as it just doesn't have the right stats to be a good Steel-type attacker, and it lacks a good Steel-type moveset. Thus, don't feel pressured to get a really good one, unless, of course, you are a Hundo or Shundo hunter. Now, something you need to know regarding this raid boss is that it is a defense-heavy Pokemon. Therefore, you will need to bring the absolute best counters you have, especially if you're going to attempt this boss with few trainers. Speaking of which, you can secure a win against Registeel if you bring a total number of 6 trainers that are at least level 30. If you want to challenge yourself, all you need is a total of 3 trainers at least level 40. Of course, this is all assuming you are bringing the absolute best of the best counters, so let's go over those right now. The most ideal setup you will want to bring is a Fire-type Mega Evolution, along with a bunch of Fire, Ground, and Fighting types. The 2 best Megas that are great against Registeel are Mega Blaziken or Mega Charizard Y. Both of these Megas with Fire-type attacks will be really strong versus this raid boss. Going alongside them, you will want to bring Groudon with Ground-type attacks, Reshiram with Fire-type attacks, Shadow Moltres with Fire-type attacks, and Terrakion with Rock-type attacks. Now, if you don't have a robust collection of legendary Fire types, Ground types, and Fighting types, then consider bringing Shadow Machamp with Dynamic Punch, Chandelure with Fire-type attacks, Shadow Mamoswine with Bulldoze, or Darmanitan with Fire-type attacks. All of these Pokemon are pretty easy to get, and are viable against Registeel. If you have any of these Pokemon, but are lacking in any of the legendaries, then you should definitely consider bringing them. Of course, this is a great opportunity to test out those Shadow Pokemon that we got up until now. The fortunate thing is that Registeel is coming back during a Team Go Rocket Takeover event. Thus, if you're sitting on some Shadow Machamps from Battling Cliff, then you should power them up and remove frustration. You don't even need to unlock the second charge attack or use any elite charge TMs. Both Shadow Machamp and Shadow Mamoswine can come with moves that are strong against Registeel. So yeah, taking down Registeel just requires a ton of high DPS Pokemon. Bringing a Mega Evolution with a bunch of Shadow Pokemon is probably your best strategy. Make sure you coordinate with your raid mates so that you stagger those Megas. The most ideal scenario is that all of you are running Mega Blaziken with both Fire and Fighting type attacks, and have the rest of your team with Shadow Machamps. That is probably going to yield the highest amount of damage. Now, I bet some of you are thinking that Shadow Machamp is not an ideal Pokemon to use, mainly because of how squishy it is. Well, it's like I mentioned, Registeel leans heavily on the defensive end, and it makes up for it with a really low attack stat. Therefore, it won't deal a heck of a lot of damage, and the charge attacks it can come with are pretty easy to dodge. So now that we discussed how you can beat Registeel, let's now go over how you can pick up its shiny form. Like every other legendary raid boss that has a shiny form available, getting shiny Registeel is going to be all luck. Basically, you have a 1 in 20 chance with every raid encounter. Seems pretty straightforward, and that's because it is. In order to get shiny Registeel, you will just need to raid as often as you can. That's obviously going to be common knowledge to veteran players, however, very few players will recognize that getting a shiny Pokemon from a raid, even with this boosted raid, is never guaranteed. Every time you defeat a Registeel raid, you're basically rolling a 20-sided dice. This means you could pick up a shiny after just one raid, or it could take you several dozen, maybe even a couple hundred. By my own experiences, getting the first shiny of a legendary is often going to be one or the other. It took me only 6 raids to get my first shiny Virizion, but it took me almost 100 raids to get my first shiny Groudon. The IVs weren't even that good. It's totally fine to have the hopes of getting a Shundo, but you should really temper your expectations. No matter how you spin it, there is a lot of luck involved when it comes to shiny legendaries. If you really want to get yourself a shiny Registeel, then just raid it as much as possible. Every time you complete a raid, the higher the chance that you'll eventually get it. But remember, shiny Registeel's value is really as a trade chip. You won't get any benefit from having a high IV of this Pokemon. Rather, you will want to use it to get whatever Pokemon you want. Most players will want this Pokemon, especially if they are heavily involved in the Go Battle League. Therefore, stock up on as many of these as you can. You won't regret it. Anyways, that's going to be it for this video. Leave your thoughts down below what you think about this Pokemon. If you have yourself a really good shiny Registeel, feel free to flex it down below. And if you ended up enjoying this video, be sure to hit that like button and subscribe if it's your first time here, and don't forget that little bell so you can stay up to date on whenever I upload videos. And I want to give a quick shout out to my patrons on Patreon. You make this channel content possible. If you want to support my channel in any way, big or small, then be sure to check out the links in the description below. For all my patrons, they get a permanent spot on my in-game friends list, so if you want to interact with me in some way, like with remote raids, then do consider becoming a patron on my Patreon. But yeah, that's going to be it. I'm Count Jinsula. Be safe, have fun, love yourself, and I'll catch you all later.